Hello?
What's going on, Bear?
Okay, brother. I'm gonna wait for them.
Hey, Bear, can you hear me? Okay. Just give me the thumbs up if you and your guest is ready. I think he got his mic and video muted. Okay, there you go. You both can hear me, correct? Yep. All right, I can cut this song too, Bear, if you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, I hear you. How's it going?
Well, good, man. Can't complain. Can't complain.
Have we started?
No, not yet. I'm actually about to hit the drop for you right now. All right.
All right. Peace, brother. How you, Dasan? How you, brother? I can't hear you, Dasan. Your mic's off, brother.
Sorry. I'm doing all right, Bear. How you this morning?
I'm good this morning, brother. No complaining, man. No complaining. I'm waiting on Brandon to get us right.
Are we ready? A Little Too Real with Bear Jervay. Saturdays on Choice.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, family. Peace and greetings, grand rising to everybody. I'm gonna jump right into it this morning because this brother is so busy. I don't want to take all of the king's time. I know he's doing something right after this. This king here is on the scene for everything that I could possibly think in Durham that has to do with the forward progress of Durham. I think of this brother. I really can't even think of anything in Durham without thinking of this brother. He's an activist, he's an artist, he's a poet, and he's all around just a brother I respect so much because of his integrity. And I'm glad that he took time to speak with me this morning. Brother Dasan, how are you? Dasan, I knew.
Man, I'm doing good, Bear. I'm doing good, man. Glad I'm doing good, man.
It's good to hear from you, brother. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for taking the time with me this morning. I sort of like this because we're black men and you in Durham and I'm representing Raleigh, so it's like a Durham and Raleigh thing. We can. I like building that bridge instead of separating us with imaginary lines. I like building that bridge. This is a Durham and Raleigh thing.
Yeah, that's very important, man. It's always wild to me how folks consider the two cities to be so far away.
Right, man. right. Especially when I know places that we'll go eat in Durham, like just a restaurant, black-owned restaurant in Durham, and it's really not that far. It's really
It's a
not that
mindset.
far, but yeah, it's a mind thing. So brother, I know you're known for organizing and poet. Like you can't even mention poet in the state of North Carolina without mentioning you, brother. And that's a great feat. Before I knew you on a speaking to you level, I was hearing about you and your poetry and how it has touched so many lives. How did you get into this? How did you discover you had that talent?
Well, it's kind of crazy. I think the first time anybody told me I wrote something good was second grade. And the only reason why this stands out is because my mother was so proud. It's one of them proud, put something on the refrigerator moments. So I wrote a poem and it got published in the school newspaper in the second grade. And it's so funny is that it was about just the state of the world. I don't know what I was thinking. I called the president of Billy Goat. That's all I remember. That's the only line I remember from the poem. But it got published in the school newspaper.
Who was the president at the time? I'm gonna date you. Who was the president at the time?
Ooh, shoot, it might have been Carter.
Ooh, okay. I dated you.
Yeah, that had to be. No. That had to be Reagan.
Okay.
That had to be Reagan. I had to think about it. That's 80s. That had to be Reagan. So second grade, that was like 81, 82. That was Reagan. So just after Carter. So yeah, and my mom, she loved it. And what ended up happening is that just sort of planted the seed. And I grew up an only child. I mean, I have my dad has siblings, but my mom's only child. So it just started to, I always kept coming back to it as like just a place for my thoughts. And so that's where it started, man. I just let my imagination roam free. I had a really vivid imagination. It was just a way for me to occupy and pass time whenever I was going through something. I was a real introverted, shy kid. So it was just my go-to. And that just kind of stuck with me until I finally, agreed to walk into an open mic some, number of years later.
How many years later? What was your first open mic? Not even an open mic. What was the first time you performed in front of people, something you had written?
I ended up at Expressions on Hargett Street, downtown Raleigh.
I remember. Wow.
Yeah, so Jamaican club, family owned. So I ended up there. I went to the Cypher first, and Tracy and Matt were hosting the Cypher. Born was hosting.
Right. Wow.
And they told me about Wednesdays at Expressions. And so I went for a couple of weeks, started to see some people I knew from when I was growing up, and got talked into getting on the mic. And I was probably, I don't know, like 21, 22, something like that. Had been writing for a while, but wouldn't, unless you were close to me, wouldn't share any of it. And finally just got talked into getting on the microphone. And I was nervous out my mind. So the AHANU kind of started to be born there because I needed a way to feel comfortable on the mic, and rethinking of myself sharing and rethinking of myself as an artist or as a potential artist was how everything kind of got started.
Okay. Did you when you first started? Did you imagine that it would take you where? Well, like, were you planning this?
No. It's so crazy when for all my students and mentees, I'm like, I never had any of this. Like any of the things that I, do for them, I never participated in this. I didn't do any arts programs. If it wasn't just straight up school, it was, I played a couple of different sports. My friends would talk me into doing, some things with them. I had friends who sang and danced, and they taught me into doing stuff, but I never thought I was gonna be an artist. And and at the time that I started going to expressions, I was working for IBM. And in my mind, I was trying to figure out how to be a project manager. That was what was on my mind. And this art thing was just there for me. And I just met folks who kind of, introduced me to opportunities. But at the same time, what also happened is that because I'm a curious by nature. And once I figured out that there was all these cultural things going on, I was like, where all at? And I ended up meeting and bumping into folks in the social justice community and meeting elders and I just started uncovering these things that I just hadn't thought about or hadn't paid attention to. And because I was, like I said, I was real kept to myself coming up. So I just discovered this whole kind of like world at this real kind of bohemian moment in the Triangle that was kind of both, there was like a cultural kind of renaissance where there was elders trying to make sure as young folks had ties to who we were and what was going on in the world. And then there was like a college movement happening where there was a lot of young Black folks trying to like, saying just hold place for people to be Black and proud and expressive. So I just kind of stumbled into it.
Right. I know tons of poets. You and I know tons of poets, of the same. And I try to explain to folks who don't frequent poetry slams or events as often as we do. You can never imagine how it is to see the world through the eyes of a poet. Like you guys see the world in a manner that the average person. I mean, that's, I believe, for me, one of my pleasures of going to any poetry events is because you hearing on how you guys see the world. Do you think that would you say that your poetry helped you come out? Because I know you say you were kept to yourself, but do you think the poetry helped you come out?
Yeah, I mean, most of the people who know me, that's how they know me. And I mean, and I tell people how transformative it was, because my life would be completely different if it wasn't for poetry, just because of the spaces that it put me in. Like I've seen most of the country, and that's as an artist. I mean, came from a working class family. We didn't take a lot of family vacations and trips and things like that. Most of the country that I've seen has been since I've been a poet. And it's been through the things that it's introduced me to. Hardworking mom, she worked third shift. And so, at the time that I stumbled into a poetry venue, I had, partied my way out of college. And it's on the other side of that I went back to school. So the fact that I teach college now, undergrad and grad school was in the midst of this. I'm saying? A lot of the connections, a lot of the training, me being involved in organizing and blending those two worlds, all of that were folks that I met that found me running around to spit a poem. And it's crazy. Like I consider the Dillahunts to be, amazing mentors to me and help raise me in community. But Rakia taught at my high school. But all of the things she was doing with teenagers at the high school, including the big demonstration they did when there was the whole incident at Crabtree, I missed all of that. So it wasn't until I'm out and about, just searching for culture, that I meet folks that I've known, like I went to high school with a daughter, like I've known, but didn't get to know the way some of my peers got to know them back in the day. And so, you know, they just kind of grabbed me and took me under their wings. So all of these things happen as a result of poetry, and it informs the way that I write, the way that I deliver, where I place my art, where I agree to show up with my art, all of that. I mean, poetry really just took me in a whole different direction, man. And it also, the one thing that I don't get talked about enough, but I'm glad you asked this question, is I was also, you know, on my own journey of self-discovery, just kind of like, you know, history, different walks of religion, tradition, Pan-Africanism, just digging. And poetry gave me a way to process, because it can be a very overwhelming thing. There's so much that you realize you haven't been taught. And the poetry and poetry community and me being able to write, a lot of my early writings were just stream of consciousness. I was just processing all of the things I was learning. And it gave me a way to find myself in the midst of all that information and kind of develop my own frame of work, my own methodology to things, my own ideology to things that I don't know if I would have been able to get to any other way. Definitely not working in corporate America, chasing that whole thing.
Fact. Brother, how important are the arts to the liberation, to the survival, and to the recording of Black culture?
Essential, and I wish people understood that.
Right.
And folks will say they do, but not in the way the way they need to. So every major moment in history, especially in our struggles as Black folks, has been chronicled in art and culture. Every action, like there's music played at meetings, there's chants and demonstrations, like there's all this art, there's artwork, people wear stuff on t-shirts, people look to art to inspire them, to motivate them. But when you look deeper at it, you realize that the art was created in response or inspired by what was happening on the ground in terms of action. What I've always been chasing and pushing is, at what point will it become an integrated part of the strategy? Because on the other side are folks who believe that they shape the world's reality. Right. On our side, we have an asset within the brilliance of our creative community to be able to match that, to be able to recontextualize whatever gets thrown at us, to be able to remind us, to pierce through it, to interrogate it, dissect it, but also to give us an ongoing vision of what we're fighting for, what it will actually look like when we win, so that we can continue to believe it's possible. We can shape reality on our end, but we don't, we're such a diligent, working, fighting folk that we forget that our mission is towards a vision, and we gotta think about how to maintain everybody's eyes on what that vision is. And that's, the arts are so critical for that. So it's necessary. I just want us to see it's also strategy. Like, it's also struggle. The art is also struggle. And if we think about that, I think we'd stop losing so many of our artists, you know. And I don't think we lost them, but I think sometimes we as a people think we lose them. But it's because they're out trying to figure it out on their own. It's one of the reasons why we see artists make this shift as they get older, is that at the time when they're older, they finally figure some things out, because ain't nobody around them to help. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't come up in a community that was readily available there to kind of mentor them and open some doors and kind of influence what they're doing. So we just got to start. It's so critical and necessary.
Right. You just had an event. You were just part of an event, and I want you to shout out anybody who was, you know, with you in creating this event this past weekend or the weekend before. Speak to that. What was that event, and can I expect another one?
Yeah. So we started. We had the Jambalaya Soul Slam, which is a monthly poetry slam series that we do at the Hayti Heritage Center in Durham. It's the African American Cultural Center, historic landmark, old St. Joseph's A&B Church. And we did one in August just to kind of test it out, and then we did one last month. You know, all kind of precautions and socially distance. We actually did it in the courtyard, and we're gonna try to do it. You know, we're gonna keep it going. We're gonna try see what the weather's like and try to do it in the courtyard. If not, we do it in the lobby. Keep the numbers really low. You know, follow all the guidelines and everything. But just to be able to give poets outlet and give some folks an opportunity to hear some poetry. We've been doing the slam since 2000 at the Hayti since 2005. It actually got started in 2002 at the Fruit of Labor World Cultural Center, but we've been there since 2005, man. And it's a, you know, it was important for me to try to bring it back, just because we got poets that are part of a community and a legacy that, like, you know, I just want to keep them active and together and give them a place to kind of process their thoughts about everything that's going on. So every third Saturday, bullcitypoetryslam.com is the website for it, or you can look at the Hayti website, hayti.org. You'll find information about the slam, and you can find them both, you know, the Hayti social media or the Jambalaya Soul Slam across social media.
Yeah, you finding it hard to hold on to the Black poetry scene during the gentrification times of Durham? We going through it here too, brother. We holding on with strings in Raleigh, baby.
You know, it's crazy because it's so easy for it to happen, because poetry is one of those things that you don't need a place to do it. Like, you can write and you can write wherever. Right. So what happens is you'll blink and look up and realize the places that are available to you to connect and share with people just keep disappearing.
Right.
And that's the challenge. Space is the challenge. You know, nobody's restricting us from writing what we want to write and saying what we want to say. We just keep looking up and realizing we ain't got too many places to say it. So that's the battle. And there's not enough folks concerned about that on either side. This is not enough. Because there's this type of space you hold. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to tie the importance, brother. Forgive me for cutting you off.
Oh, no problem.
That's why I wanted you to uplift the importance of the arts to our culture, for that exact reason you just said right there. Because folks aren't concerned enough. Like, it's expendable.
Yeah.
And I don't see how any, especially Black talent, is expendable at all. You know, and like you said, it's a record. It records. When our press is lacking, all right? When our press is lacking in photography, when our Black press is lacking in coverage, you will be able to go to these individuals who are poets who have given you the honesty of what was occurring at that time. You will be able to go to a picture that was painted during that time and not somebody who's painting a picture from that time. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, I believe that it's exactly like you just said, man. That is the reason why it's important to. I wanted you to lift up, you know, having the arts, and people just don't seem concerned enough.
No, and they don't, and they aren't. Part of it is that we've been socialized into an expectation that the art will find us. Problem is that there's so much that happens before any of that art makes its way to the places that we look to expect to find it. And there's so much filtering, there's so much gatekeeping, where I'm like, I don't understand why we keep doing that when we could get past all of that and go to these spaces that are right here. Make sure we got space in our community for the art to exist, because you may see some of the same folks. Like, I got folks that folks will find on TV or on social media, right? That I brought down here, right?
Right.
That folks didn't show up for when I brought them here, but see a video go viral and love them to death, and I'm like, I just had them here last year. You know what I'm saying? And the spot I brought them to ain't open no more. Like, that kind of thing is an issue, because it's one thing to see something from afar, it's another to be in the midst of it.
Thanks.
And what you can do and who you can bring, like, it's a totally different thing. And to make sure that those places are there. So here's the community responsibility, to make sure those places are there. So when you experience it, the next time we throw it, somebody else can come and experience it.
That's right, brother. That's right.
And we can just keep exposing folks to this art.
That's right.
Local, national, whoever. Because you know, I mean, there should. It's part of this is weird thing where you're right. It does seem expendable, and I think because there's this belief that we have that if it's good, it will eventually make its way somewhere where it'll get exposed to us.
Right.
It happens with Black artists and Black culture. Like
Right.
if we good, we don't all get a shot. It's just not what's happening. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just not reality. And then what I hate is there are folks in our backyards that are out here like killing it, getting affirmed in other places. And it's years before you find out they're down the street.
Right. Yeah.
Because they at the crib, they're like, I ain't got nowhere to go meet people, tell anybody I'm here, but I got to do this work. I got to eat, I got to put lights on, I got to pay bills. I got to create. But I'm down the street, yo. And it's like, oh, how long you been here? It's forever. Like, what y'all doing? Like, so you're right, man. It doesn't seem like it matters, but it's got to matter.
It has to matter. I agree 100%. So you also involved in the Southeast Regional North Carolina Poetry Festival.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Give me some information on that, brother.
Yeah, it's a wonderful festival. Dear friend of mine, LaJuan Bowens, also known as LJ the Poet out of Fayetteville, along with some other amazing folks down there, kind of built this. Initially, it kind of started as being able to provide some poetry in conjunction with the Dogwood Festival. And so it kind of grew into its own thing. They got a propagation from the city and then got one from the state this year for being able to continue to hold that space, even though they're doing it virtually this year. But it's a beautiful thing. There's space for youth, there's space for adults. I'm hosting a panel with adults who mentor youth about that youth adult poetry slam connection. There's workshops, and then just space held for all different kinds of people to perform. So what's happening is kicked off Wednesday night. It'll run through tomorrow. They're going to celebrate tomorrow some legends in the poetry scene down east, which is a really important thing as well. So I'm really, really, really excited about it, man. And so if you kind of look up Southeastern Regional North Carolina Poetry Festival, you can find the information. You can find it online, or you can find it on social media.
Excellent. Brother, before I switch gears, what is your vision for the arts and for artists and for poetry and for Black folks in North Carolina? What is your vision at the end of the day? What does success look like for it?
What I want to see, what success would look like, is for there to be a Black arts infrastructure where there are, in every city, there's at least 2 to 3 spaces, multi-purpose. So there's a stage, there's wall gallery space, and there's outdoor empathy. Like there's spaces we can use, Black owned, Black run, across the state, so that we can cultivate and build not only spaces for art to be developed, but also for artists to kind of grow and thrive a little bit, so that they can just do a run across the state whenever they've got something new, so that by the time anybody else gets to see it, there's this buzz, there's this build, there's groundswell that's happened at home, and it can propel these artists out, and then they can come back, and we can kind of just funnel these opportunities. So we can just kind of boot camp these artists and this art and these new projects across the state off to prominence, and then have our folks come on back home with all that, and we can just keep shuffling our artists out into the world and give them what they need. If we do that, then everybody else is gonna, like the arts councils, corporate, wherever any other resources or what have you are gonna have to come find us, but they're gonna come find us in our own spaces on our own terms. And so, and then out of that, we can tie, because we know where we can put our hands on our artists in that way. Anytime we need to move, we know where to send word to. When we need folks to move, we need commissions, when we need, we need some songs, we need a soundtrack, we need some artwork for like we need, because we moving, we know where to find everybody because everybody's plugged in and tied. And we can also make sure if we do that, we know that all the venues, whoever's running them, we're gonna keep it popping because we just running folks through all across the state.
Right.
And then you gotta come holler at us because we've got that lot. Like you come through the state, we already got it popping. Like it's our own little chip, it's our own conscious chitlin circuit that we got popping. So when you come through, it's like when you see the comedy scene and you always, whenever comedians want to come back with new material, they come back home and touch a stage. We can create the same kind of thing. It doesn't make a difference if you were just on Broadway. When you home, you got to get back to your roots. And now young cat just writing some poems and cat who was just on Broadway is working out new material at this Black-owned spot. It's going to be packed every time because that's what you come to expect. You want to see what that is, and it's ours. So that's what I want to see happen, but it's got to matter to folks.
Right, facts. That's all facts. All right, let me switch speeds on you, brother, and ask you another question, asking about the other side of you, the organizing side. We got this election coming up. I know you're voting. Who you voting for?
Man, look, not Trump.
Whoever, I don't care, as long as it's not him, man. The Billy Goat coming out the bathroom, if his name is on that ballot, he got my vote.
Yeah, anybody that got a groundswell and can get enough votes to get that out, I'm all for that, and then we can tackle
so
the rest of that after.
My last episode, my last show, brother, I had the Queen, Aaron Dale, up here, whom you know well, and we were discussing why should Black folks vote. But I want to be more specific, being that you and I are up here talking now. I want to ask you a question, brother. Why, as a Black man in North Carolina, should I vote? And I'm playing devil's advocate here, okay? The police don't care. They're gonna kill me. I ain't never got nothing from voting in the past. It ain't nothing but white people on that ticket. Why I gotta vote? My one vote ain't gonna matter if y'all vote. My one vote ain't gonna matter. Why I got to vote in North Carolina as a Black man?
Well, the first thing that I'm gonna say is we gotta remember our folks in the field, and we tend to forget that. I know white folks are majority, so we tend to see them so much we forget we got folks in the field. And so for me, my vote is not only about whatever I'm in opposition to, because if it's a national election, it's this bipartisan system, it's two-party system. That's the way the rules of the game are. But I got folks in the field in that fight, and they need me to vote, and they need me to vote smartly, right? You know what I'm saying? They don't need me to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian and throw a vote into the wind, because there's a Black effect to these decisions we make. And I think we lose sight of that because we get caught up in our particular position on things. But we got folks in the field. Locally, statewide, we got folks in the field. We all know folks working voter registration, folks campaigning, Black folks, and every decision, it's not just about decision made in the moment. It starts to set a chain reaction for how everybody positions and maneuvers, what policy, what gets decided, who's looking for leverage because they lost that, so they got to win the next battle. And we got to be in the midst of it, and we already got soldiers in the field. So for me, whenever I think about it, I can feel however I feel, but my first thought is, how can I best support soldiers in the field? If they need me to vote Biden-Harris, and that's what the call is, then that's what I'm doing, because I need to make sure they can maneuver. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna need them to help me maneuver when it's time for me to maneuver. I want the same kind of support. So I don't want to have that debate later where we're arguing over who voted where, which is exactly how always happens. We got work to do. I don't have time to have this debate about why folks didn't vote a certain way. Now, let me give you this vote, And then now I'm over here, we gotta move, and I need you to show up over here.
Yeah.
And do what we need to do. Educate folks, drop policy information, smile and wave at the camera for a candidate we trying to get on down right here in Durham. Nah, we got soldiers in the field. I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna give you that, and then I'm gonna need that back. And that's always my mind. So if we think about it that way, we're playing the game in a different way. And we got to get out of the sensationalism and the emotionalism of the moment.
Yeah. It go and I'm gonna tell you why I vote and why I push Black folks to vote. And then this is reality, okay? And it goes back to the discussion you and I were having a couple of days ago. You know, I believe in us grooming our politicians from here on out, all right? I don't believe that we should get in practice and be in the practice of not voting and then groom our politicians and then try and get everybody. I want us to like be heavily involved in voting so that when we eventually, which will happen, all right, which will happen, and I'm speaking that, I'm lifting that up. So when we eventually participate as Black folks in the entire process, the entire electoral process, and we have groomed our politician, then that's all we got to do is put them out in front of our folks. We're still in the practice of voting. We're still in the practice of doing, of canvassing, of doing door knockers and all of the situation, you know. That's my major reason. That's my major motivation for continuing to vote, brother. That right there is my major motivation for, and so that even the ones coming behind us see us doing it, so that even if you and I don't get it correct and they evolve what we leave on the ground and they evolve and they piece it together and they get it right, there's still, oh, I remember seeing Dasan. I remember seeing Bahr doing blah, 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 you know what I'm saying? And it'll be, and that's the teacher, you know, so that's my major thing, you know, for the voting.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I got to talk to you about, you know, our sister, our queen that passed, that was murdered. I'm sorry, I said passed, that was murdered by these white folks, police officers, Breonna Taylor. I've been seeing a lot on social media and hear a lot of sisters bringing up the protection that they need from us. And we also know that this is not just the physical protection.
Right.
Could you speak to that as a Black man for me, brother?
Yeah. This is a critical listening moment. And I found myself, I'm so glad I knew we were going to talk about this. So found myself yesterday, I had to catch myself because, you know, I'm seeing some conversations and, you know, one of the things that I saw posted was where did this protection narrative come from? And in that moment, I was so livid.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's the problem. We got to get out of this mindset of, and we've been socialized into it, that if I'm good, it can't be no problem because I'm down for I'm down for Black women.
Right.
Bruh, it's not an individual thing. Black women are not saying that Black women aren't being protected and need to be protected and preserved.
Right.
And pointing their finger at you.
Right.
They're pointing a finger at us.
Right.
And so there's got to be some sense of awareness and accountability for the things that you're not paying attention to because you're so busy making sure you're good. That's a problem from the gate. So we got to listen and start to understand that we need to be thinking about the environment and what our impact and effect can be on the environment. That's internally in terms of us as Black men, but also how we move and where we are in the world and the spaces that both of us, Black men and Black women, are in, and what impact or effect we can have in those spaces. Because that silo mentality and thinking is how we end up finding out later. Because what it is you were there and she was there, but she did what she's always did, which is hold it down in the moment for self-preservation. And then later you find out that everything went good in the same space y'all was in. But you like, I'm down for Black women. I was in the space. I didn't see nothing wrong. That's because you weren't paying attention.
Right.
Right. You want aware. You want on point. You want on pivot. Like you out of tune because you're not listening. you probably could have seen some signals or got a note. Like, we're not in tune, and that's a thing we've got to understand, that's intentional. Like, we've been made real careful about the way we maneuver through the world in terms of each other. We're very aware of the external forces that are present wherever we show up,
Right.
but not as in tune to. I mean, and the listening is so big because it's like each time we're in a moment of struggle, this comes up because it's so important for us to realize that we can't prioritize the struggle over the present, over the healing and the support and the protection and the survival of our own, including Black women, including Black queer folk. Like, we can't keep doing that. And so that listening is important.
You know, and I've said this on the show before, and I don't know if anyone caught it, but I'm gonna say it again. I believe that for too long, paying bills has been identified as a Black man providing, just paying bills. I believe that it's time as Black men we extend to what truly providing means and what truly providing is. I believe that Black men are responsible for creating a structure for these women to be safe, for their queens to be safe, not encouraging them moving their intelligent minds into somebody else's structure, but providing, financing, whatever it is that that structure requires to be built. I believe that that is part of that Black man's duty as a provider as well. Because you and I know, I mean, reality is on a larger scale of life, anybody can pay a light bill. But who can remove that sister from the oppression? Who can remove, who's going to remove that sister from the situations that happen to our sister, where she has to worry about people coming in your home while you're sleeping, murdering? I believe that it's time as Black men we start focusing on those issues for our children, for our babies, for our women, and our elderly. I believe that that is how our society will be judged, is how we treat our women, our children, and our elderly. I believe that Black men have to understand that when that Black woman is in her space where she needs to be, the nation is in its space where it needs to be. You know, and I mean, you know, all of our, you know, our first teachers, nurturers, first thing that feed ever me and you was a Black woman. I learned the most from Black women. My family is nothing but Black women, you know. And it's like, oh man, if you don't got Black women in your life, I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for you. So I believe that men, we are going to have to analyze, even if you feel some sort of way about hearing that context that Black men protect Black women, even if you feel some sort of way about hearing it, we're going to have to come together and investigate what's going on. It's high time.
That's it.
It's high time.
That's
They're
it.
like, you know, if you meet 7 folks in one day that don't know each other and they tell you your breath stinks, you might need to go in the bathroom and check your breath. You know?
Don't matter you brush your teeth. You still might want to check some things.
These 7 people don't even know each other, King. All right. There's not a conspiracy against you.
Right.
You feel me? And I believe that as Black men, we are now going to have to be, you know, intentional in seeing what providing, what protecting looks like for that Black woman. What she needs for protection. And I believe when we prioritize that, and this is reality. All right, this is reality. And I got my queen, all right? So I don't want nobody to think I'm trying. All right, this is reality, all right?
Right.
I believe when we accomplish that, that's when our nation will begin real healing and rebuilding. I don't believe that it's going to come through a lot of these other processes exclusively. I don't believe it's going to come through religion exclusively. I don't believe it's going to come through politics exclusively. I don't believe it's going to come through us fist fighting racists in the street exclusively. I believe that for us to arrive and maintain our arrival, that part of that unification is going to have to come from that Black man understanding the necessity and the position of the Black woman.
Yeah, no, that's so real. I mean, the Combahee River Collective Statement was 40 plus years ago. Woo. And that was on the tail end of 20 years of struggle and movement, and still in the midst of that, while being together in the struggle fighting, Black women still being like, hold on, like there's some things we still gotta, y'all need to be mindful of, and lifting exactly what you said. If you answer the issues for the Black woman, you will have answered the issues for so many others. Mm-hmm. That's 40 plus years ago. So this isn't a new narrative. But once again, if in these moments we find ourselves here, that means we got to start digging deeper. We got to start looking broader. That's right. We got to start equipping ourselves.
That's right.
And you're right about that. And we got to do that. We got to do that because we now, whether it's wherever it's at, you know what I'm saying, we now know we can go from that to them busting in the front door and letting off shots. And we can't afford to keep losing folks like that. Like,
I know you got to jump, brother. So let me touch these last two things one more time. Let me touch these last two things before you got to jump. I know everybody's been hearing and talking about the Tory Lanez and the Megan Thee Stallion. This ties into what you and I were just talking about, and how this Black man shot her. All right, and I know you heard about that. Now, I'm not uplifting. Forget him. All right, what I'm uplifting is after that Black man shot her, and the police arrived, because this Black woman knows how white folk do Black men. She didn't say he shot her or he had a gun. Brothers, we got to get it together. That woman protected, come on, man. We got to get it together. That was a powerful thing right there when I first saw the sister say that, all right? Because she knew what would happen to them. She knew what would happen to them on that road in today's times if those white police officers knew that it was a gun in that vehicle.
Yep.
Only a Black woman, brother.
Yeah, for real.
And if you can't realize you need that, you lost.
Look. I mean, you said it. On point. Always. Just always.
And another thing is, I can't even remember when I saw you perform it, brother, but you had a poem that you performed. I can't even remember. I done seen you, so I can't even remember, but it was about a spider.
Yeah.
Brother, I need that recorded on video and put out. You got to put that on your page because that is so relevant in this time of today. Yeah. And I believe folks need to really, like, and I've been meaning to tell you this for months or a year. I think it was a year ago I seen you perform, and I think it was at Haytime. I think I was at the Haytime. But that's today.
Yeah. That poem, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That spider poem is going to be in my new book of poetry.
Let's talk about that book. When can we expect it?
It should be dropping. It'll be dropping later this fall. So before the end of the year, it's coming out on Willow Books. We'll have the pre-order date up. If you look for me, Dasan AHANU, DASANAHANU.com, you can find my website to have that, but Dasan AHANU across all social media. But it's in that book, which is called Shackled Freedom. It's Black Living in the Modern American South. It's inspired by, dedicated to the South, but it's in there. And as part of releasing the book, my intention is to make sure that gets recorded and dropped. There's a few poems that I need that folks have asked for. to be able to get the video and have that done. So I'm planning to do that as part of the rollout of the book.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's going to happen soon. But a lot of people have resonated with that piece, man, and I'm excited for it to be where folks can have it in their hands and read it again and again. But I'm gonna definitely make sure the video happens as well.
Yeah, it does. I most definitely am going to support and buy a few books, but I'm going to also, I need to see you performing it, because that's what put the nail in the coffin for me, is your emotion, your passion, your energy put behind it is what really made. I saw that spider when you performed that. You hear me, brother?
Yeah.
I saw that spider going through the trials of his day when you performed that piece, brother. I know you got to jump. I want to thank you for coming on A Little Too Real, man. I hope it won't be the last time.
Yes,
You know, I always reach out to you. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank everybody for listening to us. Please support and look out for Brother Dasan on all his ventures, from Raleigh to the Bull City to Cary to Oxford and all everywhere in between. Y'all look out for this brother and support all of his efforts. Thank y'all for listening.
Peace.
Peace.